Well, good morning. The time being 9 a.m, I declare open the general meeting for the Gladstone Regional Council for Tuesday, the 21st of April, 2026. I'll call for apologies. I believe all are present, so we have no apologies. So we'll move to the next item on the agenda, councillors, which is messages of condolence. Do we have any messages of condolence? No messages of condolence. The next item on the agenda is prior notifications of conflicts of interest.
Just the
No one is putting their hand up.
Yeah.
Sorry?
No further, other than the one for yourself, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, got mine, which is Mayor Matt Burnett had previously declared a prescribed conflict of interest in relation to item G 4.3, contract and expenditure approval tender 45-26 retail electricity, small sites, as I am the President of the Local Government Association of Queensland. And the agenda item considers a contract between Council and Peak Services, an affiliate of LGAQ. In accordance with my previous declared conflict of interest, I will leave the room for the consideration of item G 4.3 and hand over to the Deputy Mayor at that point. No further conflicts of interest. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the Mayor's statement on current issues. And I think the couple of the big events we've had since our last council meeting were, of course, the Yabobo Country Music Campout and a fantastic rendition of, was it the Gundoon Street Blues? What was it? No, the Bruce Highway Blues from Glenn Churchill. Love to hear more about that in general business, Glenn. And of course, the Miriamvale Rodeo was on as well. We've had a couple of our community forums, one held in Boyne Island on the 9th and in Baffle Creek on the 11th. And of course, we have a number of events coming up as well. Councillor Patrick attended the Youth Council Waste Minimisation Workshop in Phillip Street on the 16th. The Walking for Warriors is on the weekend of the 17th and 18th. And of course, Bella the Brave, thank you, Deputy Mayor, for participating in that on Sunday just gone. And Councillor Holzheimer participated in, I believe, the Connected Youth Cafe and Colour Run. I'd love to hear more about that as well. But that's our events that have just been happening. But coming up for Gladstone region, of course, and right across Australia, it is Anzac Day on the 25th of April. And I know councillors will be attending all, if not as many, Anzac Day services as we can across the region on Saturday, the 25th of April. The 1st to the 3rd of May is the Boyne Tannum Hookup, Australia's largest family fishing festival. Of course, that same weekend there is BAM, and it's also the Labor Day festivities are happening on the Monday at the Gladstone Marina, and I believe next year we're looking to move those a Labor Day event to Apex Park in Gundoon Street. So fantastic if we can make that happen. And then the next big event, I guess, for the region is the 1770 Festival in May, and then the Mount Larkham Show, which is happening in June. That's it for the Mayor's statement on current issues. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the confirmation of the minutes for the 7th of April 2026. A mover, please. Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer, and seconded. Looks like Councillor Patrick. Thank you. All in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is deputations. We have no deputations this morning, so we'll move to our officers' reports, but we're moving our financial report this morning to later in the agenda, and we'll move to G 4.2, which is the contract approval, PSA 3426 mechanical ventilation services, and I'll hand over to the General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Acting General Manager, Tanya Wally. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Mayor. This morning I have with me Kiara Henderson, who is usually our Manager of Contracts and Procurement, but is currently on a secondment. And I have Amy here. Council's existing panel service agreement for air conditioning services expired on the 18th of April 2026. This agreement is a critical service contract for Council to ensure the continuity of air conditioning supply at Council's various facilities. An invitation to tender was conducted in accordance with regulatory requirements to seek a suitable supplier. The ITT closed 3rd of February 2026 with 5 offers received, 4 of which were from local suppliers. Following assessment by the panel, AC Air was the panel's recommendation as they demonstrated a comprehensive level of detail in both proposed program and capability. Throughout the duration of the agreement, officers will conduct regular commercial analysis and performance reviews to ensure that AC Air are delivering on contract commitments. As the value of the contract exceeds the Chief Executive Officer's financial delegations, with a total contract value of approximately $5 million over a potential contract period of 5 years, approval is sought from Council to enter into the contract with AC Air.
That's it. Okay, thank you. Is there questions to Tanya, please?
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation. It's fairly straightforward.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Is there a seconder for that?
I think everybody wants to have a go.
Second, thank you.
I'm happy to second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor.
There's more
Thank you,
hookering out of the
Councillor
box.
Wagner. I got there. Any further comments or questions?
Very straight.
Might be an easy one for you, Tanya. I'll put the motion then. All in favour? Motion is carried. The next item is the contract expenditure approval for the 4526, which I have the conflict in. I'll hand over to the Deputy Mayor. So not to lose Wi-Fi reception, I'm going to mute this and turn my camera off, and I'll wait for a text message to let me know when it's come back in, please.
Thank you. Am I all good? Okay, so next item is, as the Mayor mentioned, 4.3, contract and expenditure approval for tender retail electricity small site. So back to you, Tanya and Chiara.
Thank you. Due to the proposed expenditure being outside of the Chief Executive Officer's financial delegation, this report seeks a resolution from Council to provide the Chief Executive Officer with authorisation to enter into a contestable energy supply agreement for the period of October 2026 to September 2030, with total expenditure estimated to be $1.48 million, excluding GST. Council is a party to an agreement, along with 17 councils and 4 not-for-profit organisations, to a supply agreement which is due to expire on the 30th of September 2026. Under laws introduced in 2007, Queensland customers connected to the national electricity grid can enter into electricity supply contracts with any electricity retailer. Inclusion in the joint contract process ensures that Council receives the best value price for contestable electricity supply.
Thank you, Tanya. Any questions, anyone? Councillor Cameron, would you like to move it?
Yeah,
or-
I'd just like to move that.
Okay,
motion.
can I get a
Thank you.
second there? Councillor Davis, but I think Councillor McClintock has a question. Okay, I've had a quick question, sorry. So obviously, just as for information only, there's a few other organisations that... No, I'm good. That are part of the agreement. So can you tell us how that happens?
Sure. Karen?
Yes. So again, just obviously the way that they do the tender is through obviously peak services through local buy, and ultimately councils can opt in or opt out as part of the process. So ultimately an email is sent around to all councils, as they did for us just recently, and obviously because of the process and because of the admin overhead, and realistically at the end of the day we're not going to get any cheaper if we do it ourselves. So essentially as part of the process, when they reached out, 17 other councils had already accepted, as well as 4 non-for-profits. So that's how that works, and essentially it's just all under one overarching agreement. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's great. So that's obviously a way that councils ensure that we can get the most out of our money.
Correct.
And secure some sort of future pricing too.
Correct. So this is obviously for small sites, but then we also have the agreement, very similar way, for the large sites as well, that we came back to council last year for. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for explaining that. So I have a mover on Councillor Cameron. Councillor Churchill, you have a question? Sorry.
I did, but I think you were touching on that. It was
Okay.
more about the 17 and how do we go beyond getting the 17 in the volatility of the market. But, you know, I'm quite happy with your answer at this stage.
Anyone else has any questions or comments? Okay, we have a mover on Councillor Cameron, seconded Councillor Davis. Are we all in favour? Mr Mayor? He's got the conflict. Okay, thank you very much. We can call the Mayor back in. Thank you. Hello? So we're up to 4.4 as we wait for Mayor. Here we go. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm back. Thank you, Deputy. Okay. The next item is G4.4, which is the review of our revenue policy. We do this every year. I'll hand over to the Acting General Manager again. Back to you, Tanya.
Thank you. The revenue policy informs Council's annual budget in relation to the levying of rates and charges, granting of concessions for rates and charges, the purpose for granting concessions for rates and charges, recovery of overdue rates and charges, setting of cost recovery methods, and the extent to which physical and social infrastructure costs for a new development are to be funded by charges for the development. This is a statutory policy that we're required to have under the Local Government Act, and the policy must be adopted prior to budget. There's no significant changes to this policy compared to previous iterations, and it's for Council's consideration.
Thanks, Tanya. As I said before, it's something we do every year. We have to get it right, though. If we get it wrong, we could end up costing us here. So is that moving the Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Or you have a question?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to move it, and thank you for the track changes, which make it really easy to see where you make changes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. A seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Wagner. All in favour? Unless there's any other questions, sorry. No, good. All in favour? Carried. Thank you, Tanya. We'll keep going. Another one for you, which is a review of our work, health and safety policy, G4.5.
By adopting a work health and safety policy, Council is demonstrating its ongoing commitment to work health and safety and is providing strategic guidance and vision for business which will drive and influence Council's safety culture. We have, as part of our policy review, undertaken a review on this policy. The changes proposed to the policy are presented in the track changes version, which is attached to your report. And I'll just summarise them. So the policy includes Council's commitment and responsibilities to both the physical and physiological health and safety of workers. Section 3.1, the commitment and vision statement have been simplified and duplication removed. A new section 3.2 has been included, documenting key principles applied in building a strong safety culture. A statement on the alignment of Council's practices with the International Standard for Occupational Health and Safety Management Systems has been included. Worker responsibilities have been amended to better reflect the legislative responsibilities for workers. A definition of psychosocial hazard and joint consultative committee have been included to support understanding of the terms used in the policy. We've updated our template and the related legislation and documents. This policy has been widely consulted across the business and is recommended for your approval.
Thank you, Tanya. Question from Councillor McClintock. And then Councillor Holzheimer.
Thank you very much. My question, obviously there's legislative changes that have brought a lot of these psychosocial elements into this policy. It was more just a question of what does that actually look like for us as far as resourcing, changing, what are the costs that doing this? It's not really something we had a choice to do, but just a little bit of an understanding on what that's going to cost and what that looks like as an implementation for the business to make that outwork.
Sure, Councillor McClintock. Carly Quinn, General Manager of People and Strategy. We'll fill you in.
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting. So legislatively, it is a new requirement, but generally keeping our people safe, both physically and psychologically, has always really
Correct.
been a requirement. So whilst there's a new focus on it, and certainly internally we are doing more as a focus on it, it's not necessarily additional resources or anything like that. So we do have a very big focus on it at the moment as far as our safety improvement plan goes. It's one of the top 3 in there, so it's definitely getting a lot of attention across the business, but that's not necessarily something new. We always have focus on different safety aspects to ensure that we're keeping people safe.
Brilliant. We're constantly trying to make sure we're looking after people the best. I was just curious what was legislatively impacting us in this
Yeah.
process here, and if there was anything more reporting we had to do, more processes that we had to do, or that our teams out on the ground have to do that will affect our productivity or some of those things in that process as well. But I'm sure emotionally there's already been a lot of that support work done, and that was a part of looking after people well that we do very intentionally. I know that, but more around that legislative piece.
I see what you mean. For example, the child safety, how there's
Correct.
increased reporting. There's no increased reporting or any of that kind of requirement from this, but it does certainly put, I guess, a name to something that didn't have a name to it before and some legal background to it. So it's certainly something that's getting a lot more attention across the industry. Ultimately, it doesn't change how we need to keep people safe at all times, but we are at a heightened approach to it at the moment to make sure that we definitely are keeping everybody safe. What I'll clarify now is there are certain risks that are identified in the
that was gonna be my next
legislation.
question.
Yeah, so there's certain risks that are identified. Those risks have already been there, have always been there,
Yep.
but we now know what they are. And our obligation now is to know them, know where those risks exist across our business. In each area of the business, what does that risk mean? What controls we have in place, what controls we don't have in place that we need to put in place, and have action plans around that. So that's the work that we are doing.
And that's being, if the policy is adopted, obviously, that's the work that will need to be undertaken now. What sort of
We've done
timeframe?
a large amount of it probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
So we did the organisation-wide risk assessments
Yep.
a few years ago. Now it's time to review them and see what gaps exist. So we do have a lot of information already. Camira and the team have a psychosocial risk register across the business, but we do know it's got some gaps. So we're going back to make sure, do we understand where those risks are everywhere? What controls, because I think one of the things we're seeing is in some teams, they're not as aware of the controls. So when we're talking to them, they'll say, oh yeah, but I know that's a risk. Dealing with aggressive customers might be a risk in a certain area, but that's always been a risk for us. And we're like, well, no, that's not acceptable. We do have controls that we can put in place. These are the controls we can put in place. Do they work for this team? Do we need to change them for this team? That's the work that's happening on the ground now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I think Lisa wants to say
Sorry,
something.
I did want to add, I think Carly's articulated it through her response, but even though there are safety elements we've always had an eye to, we have an increased positive duty, is probably a way to explain it,
definitely.
and the governance around how we demonstrate that we are taking all the appropriate actions, monitoring those risks, implementing, I think has increased, and there has been some commentary across the industry about increasing claims for psychosocial injury, so that's an exposure, and that's happening all around the industry and across all workplaces, I suppose. So there is an increased effort from everyone across the business to not only be doing the right thing, but demonstrating, documenting that we're doing the right thing. So I think there is increased effort, probably not a cost in additional people resources, but it's another part of the governance ecosystem. We keep talking about the increased responsibilities that we have and the responsibilities of employers and employees and the balance and where that's at as well. So I think there is an overall uplift in effort, and documenting what we're doing is very important to support actions that might happen in the future.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McClintock. Now, I've got Councillor Holzheimer and Patrick next. Before Councillor Holzheimer speaks, I'll just get the list after that, then Glenn, and then anybody else? No? So I'll go to Councillor Holzheimer, Patrick, and then Churchill. Thank you.
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation. I think Councillor McClintock asked all my questions for me, and Carly and the CEO's answers covered everything for me, so I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, then before I go to Councillor Patrick, can I get a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Muscat. I seconded. And then back to you, Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tanya, I was just wondering, you mentioned that there was a lot of feedback, 13 workforce submissions. Just wondering, was there a common theme? Are you able to share with us what was the common themes? I know we have a legislative responsibility, but what was the common theme? I'm just kind of interested in hearing the knowledge from the teams on the ground. Thanks.
Thank you. The common themes were probably a bit more technical in nature. So it was around the legislation and particularly making sure that we had the levels of authority and accountability in there correct. So certain terminology where, so for example, we had some really good feedback from the Health and Safety Representatives group, ensuring that we had the levels of accountability at the right place and so that the HSRs didn't feel like our accountability on them was more than the legislation required. So there was just some tweaking of language. There was agreement that the way it was worded was okay, but they felt better and clearer if it was in a different way. So those are some of the changes that we made. But the majority of feedback, because it wasn't changing anything significantly and it's at a policy level, where we get the real feedback from our people on the ground is when we're changing procedures and corporate standards. This at a policy level was more just, can we make sure that you've got your levels correct and you're not holding me accountable to more than I should be accountable for, that kind of. Vicky might have more context.
That's exactly it.
Yep.
Yeah, just making sure that wording aligned more with the legislation than what was in our existing policy. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Great to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mayor Matt. Just brief, well done. Well done to everybody involved. But I think this is a continual work in progress as well. We've come a long way from that wide capture from 3 or 4 years ago. And I think just the incident that occurred over there, I think on the weekend with one of the AFL football clubs, is another timely reminder of whatever the trigger point might be. And we just need to be conscious that the policy, and I'm totally supportive of the motion, but it's still work in progress. We've come a long way and we've arrived. I think there's probably still a little bit more to be done going into the future based on expert advice. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? No, it's moved by Councillor Holzheimer, second by Councillor Muscat. All in favour? Motion is carried. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the G4.6, the application for the permanent partial road closure in Lowmead. Over to you. Back to you, Tanya. You got them all today, Tanya. Thank you.
Thank you. I have with me Elise Landman, who is the Acting Manager of Environment and Conservation. So the registered owner of 1394 John Clifford Way in Lowmead has requested council's support for an application for the permanent partial closure of a gazetted road within that property. A copy of the map is attached to the report. Applications for road closures are assessed and decided by the Department of Natural Resources and Mines, Manufacturing and Regional and Rural Development in accordance with the Land Act. The question considered is whether the road is required as a public road. Council's role in this process is as a road manager and planning authority only. Section 68 of the Local Government Act requires a department to provide council with notice of proposed road closure and affords council the ability to object to the closure. The department must have regard to any objections raised, but at the end of the day, it is the department's decision as to how they proceed. Council officers have assessed the request and consider the proposed road closure to be acceptable. It's therefore recommended that council support the permanent partial road closure where it is under a road licence. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to the room for questions, I'm probably happy to support the recommendation that we offer no objection. Just previously, we've stayed out of these altogether because we've found that if we close roads, sometimes need them, but I'm pretty confident in this situation that's not going to be the case. But yeah, just a comment, I guess. But there's been situations before we've said, oh, no worries, you can close that road, and then it's come back to think we shouldn't have done that. But in this situation, looking at the individual, and the region's a lot bigger now than when we were considering them a long time ago, I probably think this one's fine. But yeah, it's offer no objection. Is that the wording on the resolution?
The wording for the resolution is that council support the application. In this instance, Mayor, it might be notable just to point out that the part of the road that they're wanting to close has been under a road licence, providing them with essentially exclusive use of that area for a long time. So this is not something new. There's been no complaints that we're aware of with regard to that, the use of that road licence area, and our asset planning team have reviewed, have given this a good review to determine whether it will be needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but can you just tell me then, Tanya, when have we ever previously supported a road closure?
Well, we have, in terms of offering no objection, it is essentially the same as supporting it. So we still tick the same box when we send it back. But we can easily change that recommendation as well if you'd prefer a no objection.
No, sorry. If the resolution is that we offer no objection, is the box that you tick on the form say support? So if that's the case, it's just semantics, but we've just always been very careful. And this one might be an easy one to support, but I don't want to set a precedent for down the track where someone else wants to. And they go, well, if you supported this one here in Loamy, why can't you support this one in Tannum or in Calliope or in Gladstone?
In that instance, Mayor, why don't we amend the resolution to say that council offers no objection to the application?
Yeah, because it's not our decision at the end of the day. Is that right? Yeah.
That's
I'd probably
correct.
be more comfortable with that. And if for some reason that held the process up, or if they came back to and asked for it, then perhaps we bring it back here. But I don't think that's going to be the case. Generally, they are looking to see whether we object to a road closure or not. And if we don't, then I think they generally get approved unless they've got issues with the request themselves. But is there questions, councillors? No, Councillor McClintock, thank you.
Just happy to move it with that amendment. That's great.
We agree.
Thank you. Moved as amended that we offer no objection. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Churchill and or Davis. Any further questions or comments? No further questions or comments. Moved by Councillor McClintock, seconded by Councillor Churchill. All in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. And thank you, Tanya. Well, that's you're done now for the morning. Thank you. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is G 4.7, naming of council infrastructure asset, Arthur Godsall. Fantastic. Thank you. And I'll hand over to the General Manager of Customer Experience, Kimberly Wilson, who is also online.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good morning, councillors. This paper is to consider a request to add the name Arthur Cogswell to the approved place name register and to utilise this name to Council Park asset located at Bolton Street, Turkey Beach. Arthur Cogswell was an employee of Turkey Station and was involved in a historical incident. During this incident, Arthur died, and despite an investigation at the time, the circumstances remain unresolved. Available information provided for the application has been attached to the report for Council's reading. The application has been assessed against Council's naming of infrastructure, policy and corporate standard, and it has met the required criteria. The relevant departments within Council have been consulted in relation to the application and provided no objection to the proposal. The application is presented for Council's consideration.
Thank you, Kimberly. Is there any questions to the General Manager, please? Thank you, Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No questions. I'd just like to move the motion. I think it's great to, have those historic names on our register. Thank you.
Here. Thank you, Councillor Davis. Is seconded by Councillor Wagner by the looks of that. Any further questions? Oh, you have a question, Councillor Wagner, or are you seconding? Yes, fire away.
I'm really pleased to see this one because the Turkey Beach community had raised, there are some namings there of people that maybe were a little bit infamous as well down there, and obviously this Arthur Cogswell played a pretty significant role in that community, and I believe he was murdered, was that right? Down there, so I think, yeah, it's great, and I really wanted to thank the community for getting behind this actually and starting to name some of these parks down there. I think it's important. So yeah, happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Wagner. Any further questions, councillors? No further questions. Moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Wagner. All in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you, and thank you, Kimberly. We'll move to. Are we ready to go back to the finance report yet?
Yes, we can, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. We'll move back to G 4.1, the finance report. Then we'll go to our councillor reports, and I'll hand over to Councillor Patrick after we hear from Tanya.
Thank you. I'm pleased to present the financial report for the period ending 31st of March 2026. You will recall that based on our Q1 forecast, we were anticipating a deficit. This month, Council was fortunate to receive a $6.6 million dividend from the Gladstone Area Water Board. While this dividend restores Council's surplus, we will continue to ensure that expenditure aligns with our forecast wherever we can. As we enter into the final quarter of the year, with a few exceptions, we are tracking well toward our forecast, but we do have another forecast coming up for Q3, and that will give us a better idea of where we're going to land in terms of our expenditure and revenue. We're expecting that we would deliver those forecast results in June, and they'll obviously be incorporated into our long-term financial forecast and documents for next year's budget. Capital project delivery is behind what we would expect at this time of year, and because capital delivery is down, that also impacts our revenue from grants. Expenditure is expected to increase throughout the last quarter as we approach project milestones. However, we are forecasting and have been for a few months now that capital expenditure will be below budget. We've had some, I guess, minor impacts to date from the Iranian conflict. We haven't had disruptions to supply or anything like that, but there is no doubt that it will have an impact on our budget. With regards to the risks associated with the Iranian conflict, we are standing up our business continuity team, and that team's initial task will be just to have plans in place should those supply restrictions eventuate. So that will be an ongoing thing until we reach the end of the situation. So that's about it.
Okay. Thank you. Tanya, questions? Is that Councillor Churchill with a hand up? No? Councillor Wagner, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the report. I really enjoy these and the way they're presented, so thank you. I do notice that the GORB dividend is mentioned in there for this year because we have obviously received more than we were expecting, so thank you, GORB. But I'm just wondering, in terms of the bottom line, like if we're putting it in there, I am concerned that this gets put into sort of the, into the, I suppose, operational, like I'd like that to be sort of set aside, that there should be. Yes, I'm just wondering, we were tracking at a $500,000 deficit. I don't want these anomalies to be, I suppose, muddying the waters. I really do want to, so.
Yeah, that's absolutely understood. I mean, we do need to incorporate the dividend into our financial statements, obviously, but we will continue to report against our forecast, and we do have that Q3 forecast coming up, so that will give you a clear look, and that $6.6 million is only one line item in the budget, so we're definitely aiming to get as close to that as we can.
So in terms of the budget, the annual budget for the year, we incorporated the estimated $1 million in that, didn't we?
1 million, yes, we did.
Yep. So, okay, so if we take away the 5.6 million difference there, how are we tracking to the end of the year?
The financial statements indicate that we are tracking toward our forecast of the deficit position. Did you want to add anything? extra, Jess?
No, not really. I think at the moment, as Tanya said, the financial statements are showing alignment with the forecast. However, we do have another forecast to complete. It's in progress at the moment, so that'll give us a really clear look at where we're going to finish the year. Obviously, with only a few months to go, that forecast should be quite accurate as it's completed. So I guess where I think you're piecing that together at the moment is we adopted a surplus in the budget of 1.5 million. So without the dividend, that would have been 0.5. So if we were to hit our forecast of 0.5 in deficit, that would be a slippage of about $1 million. But like I said, we still have another forecast and another opportunity to sort of restate where we think we're going to land for the year. And that other GORB dividend that we've received, the 6.6 million, is isolated in the financial statements. So we are able to show a pretty clear picture of what it means with and also without that money from GORB.
Yeah, so as the Iranian crisis goes on as well, I mean, I'm really worried that we do head into, I mean, for me, $500,000 deficit on a big budget is probably a small amount, but any deficit is of concern, I suppose. But, you know, with the impacts of that diesel and the whole lot, we are feeling that already with the price we're paying. It'd be really good to get in earlier to see what that effect is, so some decisions can be made to try to wrest that back, I suppose.
Yeah, I think the challenge with that, Councillor Wagner, is that it does take time for the expenditure to flow through, because we have contract changes and things like that that may not come through. We might not have a milestone that it may be in the future, so we're not realising that. So we'll definitely do our best.
And I know you do. One other thing is, in terms of our contracts, and I know they're all different, but are there contingencies for the contractors if things like this happen, where the price of fuel goes up astronomically, where we are paying more?
Each contract varies depending on its terms and conditions. There are, of course, mechanisms that there's force majeure and different things that allow either party to have some movement. Some contracts are set, and there's no way around that. So whenever we receive a claim from a supplier throughout this conflict, or at any time, we just need to evaluate each one individually based on the contract terms. So it's hard to say across all contracts what the impact is.
So have we had any so far that have asked for a variation?
Yes, we have.
Okay, and I suppose there's a lot of in-confidence information, but we aren't mentioning the contractors. So what sort of, I don't know, it'd be great to sort of get some sort of idea of really what, for us now. So the ones that have come in, what is the impact likely to be?
Yeah, I don't have that detail to hand with me, but potentially we can bring a report to a council information session so that councillors are more informed on the impacts that we've seen to date.
Excellent. No, and thank you for the work you're doing.
Just might add, if I could, I think the business continuity team, when we stand them up, I think that could be part of the charter there to provide that overarching high-level impacts. We've definitely seen, particularly for big capital projects, even before we've signed tenders that have been awarded in this room, that prices have increased, and it's a difficult balance, because we realise these costs are real for people, and we can't be sending companies broke. It's some of the unknown is really difficult and very challenging preparing the budget for next year as well. But I think perhaps that business continuity team can help us with some overarching trends and impacts that we can keep you informed of, and make decisions as well, because if our costs are increasing, do we continue to deliver the same services to the same level, or do we need to live within our means, or how are we funding those increases? All of those conversations, so we definitely need to be having those with you.
Thank you, Councillor Wagner. Before I hand to Councillor McClintock, who has a question, I can add further to that. As obviously as State President, Local Government Queensland, National President, Local Government Australia, we're having weekly updates with both the Federal Minister for Local Government, also through the CEO of LGAQ, directly with the Queensland Government as well, about how it's impacting councils. We were probably a little disappointed that we weren't included in some of the decisions made yesterday at a federal level that will potentially see, or not potentially, will see an increase to councils across the nation in terms of contractors and fuel, and which is fine because the decision made yesterday was to support small businesses, particularly trucking businesses, so that they can be compensated and looked after with the increase of diesel and fuel to their business. But the federal government really should have accepted at the time that for some businesses, particularly say Woolworths or Coles who rely on trucking, they can easily and probably will, although they say they're not at the moment, pass it on to their customers. For councils, it's very difficult because our budgets are set and, well, when we're doing next year's budget, it's a different story, but that's obviously going to have to include a factor of somewhere between, I don't know, 20 and 30% increase in fuel costs, which we'll just have to have that conversation shortly. But realistically, the federal government should have included local government in their decision yesterday to make sure that we were looked after during this situation as well, but that didn't happen. So, but I can assure councillors in the room and anyone watching online, we're making sure both the state and federal government are aware of the impacts to local government as well. I'm sure they would soon realise the impacts if we stopped collecting waste because we couldn't afford the diesel price. And it's probably more escalated in states that have rate caps, where they have to go back to their state government and ask to even increase their rates by anything above a cap. We don't want to have to increase above CPI, but at least we have the opportunity to do that. But ultimately, the federal government is going to have to come out and support local government, as they did during the COVID pandemic and as they did during the global financial crisis, in the upcoming budget, if we're going to be able to be remaining sustainable with the increase in fuel. Councillor McClintock, question.
Yes, a lot of nuances to the not a crisis that's happening at the moment. I just had a couple of questions about the page 9, even 10, probably a little bit joint, around that capital expenditure you spoke about before. There's obviously a lot of challenges in that area, and you touched on it in your introduction there to us not going to meet some of those milestones. I just wanted to hear a little bit more into, are there any funding agreements that's going to affect, or is there likely to be any impacts to us struggling to get some of those grants across the line because we don't meet milestones through that process?
Yeah, well, that's always a risk. Grant funding is determined on project milestones and obviously on the completion of projects. So where necessary, we're having those discussions with the relevant departments, and that's a common thing to be engaging with them. I don't have to hand any that are exactly at risk because some funding is 12 months, some funding is 2 years.
Yeah.
But again, we can bring that information to council if that's something you'd like a little more visibility over.
Oh, I guess, yeah. Yes, please. And just a little bit of an understanding in those. Obviously, each of these projects are going to have, again, different nuances to them, but I'm assuming they're giving us a little bit of understanding as far as they know this is not just purely about slack milestone achievements. There are other pressures that are impacting this along the way. You're not getting any, from what I'm interpreting and what you're just saying there, you're not really getting any clear, you're going to lose this funding, or there's significant high level risk at losing something detrimental in our financial position because of this?
To be honest, Councillor McClintock, we have a lot of grants, and so we're dealing with a lot of people. So I can't give you that assurity right here.
Cool.
I can probably just say, pardon me, there's nothing been escalated to me that I'm aware of any inherent risk, but I think it's a good piece of feedback for future reports to include whether there are any impacts or risks to that funding when we provide this information to you. I think it's a really important question to ask.
I think it's also worth noting that some of these grants are project specific, others are part of a program, so there's things that come in and out.
Yes, and that's a bit, we've got a bit of, it's hard when you read these reports and even some of the attachments to try and get that picture as to what that actually means and where those risks sit. And just my little antennas are going up at what are we going to be at risk here.
As Lisa said, that's great feedback because there's no use putting this information into the report if it doesn't provide value.
Oh, there's lots of value. So, yes. Yeah. No, just another piece of the puzzle, but thank you. And I guess that's kind of tied.
So, Councillor McClintock, can I add to that before you move to the next part of that?
Yeah.
The one thing I can assure having lots of conversations in Canberra and George Street in Brisbane, is that there's not going to be an issue around getting extensions to grants or anything like that. The problem, and I don't think there'll be an issue about it blowing out, it's just a matter of who pays the gap. So if there's a federal or state government grant that's for $5 million, and now because of this crisis happening on the other side of the world, it's now going to cost 5.3 or 6 million, who's going to pick up the extra million? Now, if it's the ratepayers of whatever particular council it is, including our own, of course the state and federal government aren't going to have an issue. But if we're calling on them to, if it's a 50-50 funding for them to put up the extra, then that's where the conversation will happen. But they won't, it'll be a very brave state or federal government to say, oh, well, you've taken extra time because you need to spread this over 2 budgets to then cancel the grant applications. But yeah, that's one of the issues I think we are getting a win with them on. It's getting the money out of them that's a little bit harder.
Interesting. And I guess just is that the piece of the puzzle? I know I sent you an email there around, particularly on page, 11, in that capital expenditure, the roads, sewage and water all had sort of different forecasts, significant changes to the forecast as to what the budget was. Is that same story impacting that there, or is there anything else in there that's happening that you can share as part of the story of that?
It's probably not detail I can share with you.
Yep.
If Mark Francis was here, it'd be great.
I can jump in. My understanding with these big programs of work is there are timing issues. So as you know, right now we're preparing budget for next year. So we do, and Jess will correct me if I'm wrong, but we estimate where our capital, we have a lot of multi-year projects. So we estimate where we're going to be at 30 June and then the portion that's rolling into the next financial year. So a lot of the movement, and it's slight, it's not terribly significant, but they're timing issues of when we think the work's going to be completed. So that's some of the explanation, but we can certainly take that on notice and bring back more detail to you again. I think, again, this is really good feedback. Jess might have some more information as to where you want to see some more detailed analysis and telling the story of what those figures mean. Again, they're really helpful questions.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, and I can understand it even from the other side of there's so many different pieces of the story. But just trying to get your head around when you're looking at these numbers, what are things that are dangers or risks that we're going to have to try and mitigate somewhere else or try and fix, and what are things that are just naturally a part of that ebbs and flows of finance that is always fun.
Yeah, and I think we have definitely called out the risk around our feasibility of these projects before they enter the portfolio. So we are consistently highlighting those risks.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to add as well, when the capital budget is set, obviously some of that is a year or a year and more in advance. As we go through and work out as the year progresses, often what we find is we have projects where it might make sense to either defer slightly or bring forward if there's a strategic procurement approach that can be taken where we can source for like projects at the same time, or even if we've done some pre-fees work and realise that there's another step involved in starting a project. So some of the movement that we see where we're asked to reforecast into that second or third year or bring forward is because there's a smarter or a better way to do a project compared to at the beginning when we set the budget, where we just had an estimate of how much it would cost and when we thought we might kick off.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. That'll do for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McClintock. Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Matt. Impressed with the investigative questions because, thank you, Councillor Simon. I'm just probably going to exasperate a little bit more on that, but I'm pleased to hear that the business continuity team has now been stood up. I'd like to, and thank you for your explanation, Madam CEO, but I'd also like to get an understanding, because trying to achieve our capital works project successfully, be it not necessarily the 100%, but close to 100%, is always a challenge. And we're not the only local government that's in a world of pain at the moment. Other local governments and our businesses are hurting. But I'd also like to get an understanding of, and perhaps Mayor Matt, you may have a response to this as well in your dealings with the Queensland Government, but as chair of the Disaster Recovery for Infrastructure, we're still standing up at the moment, and we have another meeting again this afternoon, and we've got somewhere near 200 assessments that have been collected and collated and compiled, and we've got damage to our infrastructure out there in our region at the moment, and we need to make sure that we've got some level of immediate response agreements in place with Queensland Reconstruction Authority, because at the end of the day, whilst we're talking about, rightfully talking about our capital works project, we've also got to correct the damage that's been done as a result of the recent flooding. So I'm trying to work out from my own perspective, and so that we can discuss this afternoon at the, at the disaster recovery for infrastructure. How does this all fall into place? Because the mandate for the business continuity team appropriately will be, and the timing is rather interesting because we've got less than 2 months. We're in budget cycle now, as was indicated. But where are we determining our priorities and or our preferences to be able to repair what needs to be repaired, or get about and do our capital works, which needs to be done? So it's just another, I suppose, spanner in the works, if that's the right terminology.
I think we're in a good position. We've already identified a significant portion of REPA-funded work that is forming a portion of our capital program to bring to you for budget approval. So a lot of that work will replace work that we had originally intended to do in terms of maintenance or upgrades. So, and Jess might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're fairly well placed to be able to include that work in our program, and then also have that funding source which will offset our expenses there through that revenue that we probably weren't anticipating to have. So there are some advantages to that, but I don't know if Jess or you have any further. But I think we've got it fairly well in hand, although we don't have the funding in the bank at this point in time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. In lieu of Mark Francis being here to speak, my understanding is that we do have a significant amount of works in our capital program for next year that do relate to reconstruction and flood recovery work. So almost killing two birds with one stone there by having that work included in
we
that
don't kill
capital.
birds anymore. We catch.
Feeding two birds with one bowl.
No, we catch fish. You can catch 2 fish with the one bait. Only Indian miners. Yeah.
Mark might have something to. Did you have something to add to
Mark
that,
Holmes
Mark?
has jumped on the screen.
Yeah, lovely. I think we'll all appreciate understanding this, because from a capital works project, delivery to the best we possibly can. But you're indicating at this stage that there will need to be a budget approval as a result of a change to the budget before the 30th of June?
No, and Mark will speak. This is for the next budget. It's a significant, it's in the order of, is it 13 million off the top of my head, but Mark might be able to speak.
Well, that's the figure I was trying to...
We won't be able to start doing work this financial year, would be unlikely. Mark, do you want to talk us through the process a little?
Yeah, so thank you, councillors. With respect to our flood recovery works, we are commencing work, and we've started some immediate reconstruction works and working with our funding partners, being Queensland Reconstruction Authority. We certainly, I think, will go very close, if not to the forecast position there, and if not, go a little bit over that for the capital for roads. We are still going to be getting approvals for our damage that occurred in the March events, and probably you can see that we've got 13.5 as the first estimate, and that's really only the work that we think we'll get to during next year. And essentially, from the damage from the March event, we'll have until 30 June 2028 to do that. We're anticipating that we'll be spending 80% of our time for particularly our western and southern crews will be on essentially that reconstruction effort. And essentially that's essentially how we've framed or proposing to frame not only our current works, but also our budget for 26-27.
Yeah, no, terrific. Thank you. I certainly appreciate that, and I'm sure we all appreciate the challenge ahead of us. And then it goes back to what Mayor Matt indicated there before, be it 13.5, and that I believe that's probably going to grow a little bit more, but hopefully we'll get the money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Davis, then Cameron.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've just got a question around the outstanding rates. Sorry, outstanding rates. I see in the figures here with under the payment plans, there's still about 5.6 that we've got outstanding that aren't under payment plans. And look, I know residents were really struggling before the current global financial position, so I just want to have some comfort that we are reaching out to residents, and I know there's a lot of commercial and industrial sort of percentages there as well with those outstanding rates, just so we're working with them. I just want some comfort around that.
Yeah, the rates team, I believe, work very hard with our customers around offering very flexible rating plans to get this paid. So if anyone is having difficulty with rates, I would really, really encourage them to contact our team as early as possible and have those discussions.
Yeah, thank you. I do know they work hard. It's just, is there any historical in that 25-26 figure, or is it all just current?
Oh, I don't have that information to hand, Councillor Davis, but I can provide it.
Yeah, that would be
to
great.
you.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Cameron, then Holzheimer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I just want to pick up from what Councillor Churchill struck on too, was that one of the greatest things that can ruin a project is unseasonal weather or, major weather events. I know firsthand, being in construction for a long time, that it can bring a project to a standstill, and also your cash flow is absolutely decimated. So the only standout through this, I think the progress is really, really good. The only one that came out and stood out to me was, I've got here, water rates as one, but that's explainable, is just the capital works at 57.3%. I think under the circumstances, that's not a bad effort. So I'd just like to highlight that this is where, your cash flow can really murder you. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Holzheimer.
Thanks. I also want to circle back to, and for Councillor McClintock and Councillor Churchill, in regards to, we sit in the room and we read out this paper, but if I'm an everyday Joe Blogs, how do I actually understand, or how do I get this information? Because we talk about transparency, we talk about reputation and trust and those sorts of things in community. But if we're not delivering a project within a time frame and I'm expecting that, how do I actually see that? And how do I understand that as a community member? Because I understand when we do our rates, when we do our budget, Mr Mayor will go on and he will talk about what we're planning on delivering this year, and we have a highlight and some documentation that say, here, this is what we're delivering and what it looks like. How do we then flow on to say, hey, we're only this far on the journey and this is the story that goes along with that? Because I think that's really important to continuing to build trust within community and that transparency as well. So you might not be able to answer that right now as well. I just want to highlight that I think that this is one of those really big opportunities for us to build trust and credibility in community by explaining where we're at, why we're at in this position as well, more than sitting in a boardroom looking at numbers and reading reports as well. So just something.
Sorry,
Councillor Patrick?
Sorry, can I follow on from Councillor Melissa Holzheimer? Really, you bring up a really valid point, and it's something that I have highlighted just here. People just actually want to know what are the major projects at risk of not being delivered because of the impacts that we're experiencing. Is that even a plausible thing, that we're not going to deliver on what we're saying that we are? And if so, what is that story? Because as Melissa said, we sit around, we understand what we're talking about, but for community members, we need to kind of speak in really kind of plain, understandable language and not use the acronyms and the jargon that we tend to get caught up in, because this is what we do each and every day.
Yeah, I guess a comment I would make is that we have absolutely been trying our best to make the financial report more relatable and easier to read for non-financed people. So we'll continue on that journey. I think the detail that you're probably seeking in relation to capital project delivery is outside of what we would normally consider in the financial report. But that doesn't mean that we can't provide that information through another means. And the larger projects that we have, like the aquatic centre and things like that, they're supported by a whole comms team and conversations platforms and different things like that. So there's pretty good visibility over that. But what I'm hearing from you is that we need to increase the visibility on some of our smaller projects.
Sorry, could I just jump in very quickly? I think we do have an aspiration, and we've spoken about before, about having a lot more information available on our mapping system as well, so people can see when the park's going to be mowed, when that building's going to be built, and we can have that information available at a click that people can see what's happening in their area. But it will take some time to get there as well. So some of the detail, it's an interesting question in terms of some of the projects. I'd say a lot of the projects our community wouldn't know when we were planning to do that work now. We don't necessarily provide that granular level of detail for, obviously, the bigger projects are quite significant. So, yeah, it's certainly really good food for thought and aligned with our corporate plan and where we're wanting to go, and to help, for you to help us shape what that looks like, and then we can make the steps together. But I think Tanya's right, it's probably there are other mechanisms where we want to be able to have information much more freely available to our community, that they don't even need to ask us for it. It's available there, but there's a little way to go with that.
Sorry.
Yep, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I just, it's an interesting conversation, but at the moment, I don't think there's nothing that we decided not to deliver in what we have on the table in front of us. So there's a number of key projects that have contracts attached to them, which we have, I guess, agreed to engage certain contractors to deliver projects, like like the Mointanum swimming pool, for example. So that's another step. That's if we need to review that goes through the process of our procurement and our contracts management. And if there's any variations there, that's something that I'm sure we're going to be discussing when that comes up. And if there's something that's outside what we've approved, that's going to come back to us to decide whether we want to go ahead or not, again, if that's the case. But at the moment, I don't believe there's anything that we are forecasting that we're not going to deliver. So it doesn't mean that we might not change something if circumstances change, but our commitment is to the community to make sure that they understand what those changes are. And I think we have done that in the past. So, and going back to some of the discussions that we had and what the Mayor said earlier, and the work that he's been doing around engaging with the other levels of government, this is important for us and important for our Mayor and important for all of the local governments in Queensland and in the country. But it's also important for our community members to understand that they also can play a role in advocating for their local governments to their local members. So because at the end of the day, we all pay for it. So their support will impact on how we continue to do business, trying to minimise the impact on the rising of costs that we see all across the world. So just remember that. So that will definitely help us and ultimately you. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I think Tanya probably hit the nail on the head. That's not really something that should be included in this report. It's a finance report, but obviously the finance report triggers the questions which have all been asked, and they're very fair questions. Lisa, in terms of the mapping system, is that like our projects and services online mapping system? So you're saying that our capital works program could be included in that?
It could be. It absolutely could be. I think the conversations have been around if I'm a member of our community and I live in a particular geographical area and I want to have more information about what's happening around me, that's information, where we've got that information, we can push that out to make it available for people to access rather than people having to request that of us. So there's some complexities in that and how we make that happen, but that's the vision of, we call it this radical transparency. We want our community and our ratepayers to be able to see this information that we have available. Yeah.
Sorry, the same will go for any sort of scheduled works at the park down the road,
Yes.
or if something is happening in different pieces of assets that we have around the region. That would be amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. What do you, it's a silly question probably, but we just brought it up now. But what time frame you reckon we could see that?
I make no commitment to any time frame. We'll take that on notice, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right. So you don't want it included as part B of the resolution? That's the way you put it in the
I'd
mapping
prefer
system,
not,
right?
thank you, but I think it is an important part of our corporate plan, and we will bring that back with a supporting implementation plan, and we will share with you what we think is possible and get your guidance on shaping that, so you'll know over a 5-year period where we think we can move to.
Thank you. I think that's good. I just would hate. That's a great idea, great suggestion, and it's going to be a fantastic online tool for people to be able to access information. But yeah, when it does happen, we don't want to miss the opportunity to keep that information included in there as well. Okay. So Tanya, no, we don't want anything more added into your report because it's a finance report, but we'll get it added somewhere else to answer all the questions that councillors have. Are there any more questions, councillors? No, thank you. Can I get a mover for the officer's recommendation? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Seconded, Councillor Cameron. All in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll now move to our councillor reports, and we have a councillor report from the Civic Leaders Summit. Over to you, Councillor Patrick. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I am tabling a report from the Civic Leaders Summit. Councillor Chris Cameron, Councillor Wagner, our Madam CEO, and Mayor Matt attending in his role as LGAQ President, and I recently took part in the 2026 Civic Leaders Summit, joining councils from across Queensland to focus on strengthening leadership, governance and community outcomes. This year's theme, From Effort to Impact, explored how councils can better prioritise, plan and deliver meaningful results for the communities we serve each and every day. Key discussions focused on strategic decision-making, workforce capability, regional skill shortages, economic pressures being faced by councils, and the importance of strong, united advocacy for regional Queensland. The summit also reinforced the value of calm, compassionate leadership during times of crisis, something that remains essential for community confidence and recovery. We also had a very up-to-date report from the Queensland Treasury Corporation, providing a detailed economic update outlining the impacts of the global conflict on fuel prices, rising construction costs, and the budget pressures being felt by councils statewide and probably across all of Australia. These insights help ensure our planning and advocacy remains grounded in the realities affecting our region, and that we are able to, as you've just seen, the discussion, that we're able to ask the right questions and at the right time for our communities. Taken together, the learnings from the summit will support council's ongoing work to strengthen strategic planning, build resilient workforce and enhance community engagement to make informed decisions. Most importantly, they reinforce our commitment to keeping the Gladstone region strong, resilient and moving forward. I just would like to table that information.
Thank you. Fantastic report, Councillor. Is there any questions for Councillor Patrick on that? Councillor Wagner.
Additional commentary? Yes.
No, I just wanted to thank Councillor Patrick for the report, because we did go and I think it was it captured it really well. I think for me, the Queensland Treasury report really stood out. because they did really go into the impact of the price of particularly diesel on local government, and also the short and long-term impacts on depending when things could, I suppose, get moving in terms of getting diesel to Australia. So thank you for doing that report, and some of the learnings were fantastic, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McClintock. Oh, no, sorry, Councillor Cameron.
Mr Mayor, sorry, we just need a mover and a seconder for the
I can do that now.
recommendation to receive the report,
that be
please.
received.
Yeah, I do, but we don't have to do that straight away. I can still ask questions for the report before I get a mover and seconder.
Sorry, I thought you were moving on. My apologies.
Okay.
Councillor Cameron, question?
No, I'd just like to reinforce the report that Michelle put together. Very good.
Leanne?
No, I saw you beavering away writing all these notes now, so this is going to be interesting how that comes out. But what we find with these summits that we go to is you get the opportunity to sort of measure yourself against other councils. And what stood out to me too in particular was when we had the mayor's panel up there. They're all struggling to meet their targets relative to capital works. Some of them aren't going to get within a bull's roar of it. So, you know, when you compare yourselves where we sit, we're doing pretty well. Another highlight to me was the attrition rate that most councils have. And some of them were out to 30%, 18%. And the average was 15%. On that day, we were sitting at 7.2%. So that gives you the ability to measure yourself against all the rest of the councils in Queensland. So it's very interesting and very worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further questions for Councillor Patrick? No, thank you. Well, now I get a mover to receive the report. Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Secondly, Councillor Cameron. All in favour? Motion's carried. Any further councillor reports? I'd love to hear about the Yabobo music camp out, if that's possible. Councillor Churchill.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Matt. Look, congratulations to everybody involved in the Yabobo music country camp out. It's a week-long activity, and I suppose from council's perspective we should also acknowledge not only the working committee and the Boyne Valley Community Discovery Centre group as well, and those many people who attended. So it's an annual event, it's sustainable, and it's just an absolute credit to not only the people of the Boyne Valley, but those who are strong supporters and or sponsors, including the Gladstone Regional Council, for that country camp out. So, yep, no, it was a great night. And yes, we did release my latest song, Bruce Highway Blues, so I don't think it's going to be a top of the charts song, but anyway, it's got a strong message in amongst it, Mayor Matt, that we've got a problem with the Bruce Highway, but we've always known that. Can I also just touch on another one? And I know Councillor Patrick and Councillor Holzheimer that you were out there as well, and I'm sure other councillors have been able to get there. I'm not sure, but it's a week-long great activity out there in the Boyne Valley.
Mayor Matt, I was just going to add on to Councillor Churchill's report that it was really heartening to see when I drove out there and I spoke on behalf of yourself on the Saturday night, that there were 150 sites that had been taken, which isn't a record, but it is very significant for the Boyne Valley and shows the tradition that is still very much alive out there, and people really feeling grounded and enjoying themselves in the simplicities of life. And when you're back, seeing those beautiful sunsets out in the Boyne Valley, which is really wonderful to see. I would also just like to congratulate the organisers as well on particularly that we know that we are in a fuel crisis, that so many people from all around the state and from probably interstate as well came to enjoy that almost week-long celebration. Thanks.
If you just allow me the liberty just to touch on another one, and I'm sure each and every one of us have been to various community events, but the Walking for Warriors endurance challenge that was held down at Boyne Tanham was another success. 200 participants. Councillor McClintock and I had the pleasure of doing the official opening. Councillor McClintock had the pleasure of going round more times than I did as such. But can I just emphasise, and we thank the working committee there, that's Sian, Craig, Justin and Natalie, and the many volunteers and sponsors. Again, another great community event, very timely with what we've been talking about earlier with our own health and safety policy of our people, is and leading up to Anzac Day as a commemoration. There's been, I think the figure I've got is about $100,000 or well over $100,000 has been raised since the inaugural event, and those funds going directly to support young veterans, CQ, and combined services of Gladstone. And those challenges reflect in the core values of sacrifice, courage, mateship, respect, endurance, vision, and values for those. But it's something that's synonymous with each and every one of us. The uncertainty that's going on in the world at the moment, it's absolutely imperative that we care and show kindness to each and every one of us within our city and our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Councillor McClintock.
Just to tag on the back of that Walking for Warriors conversation was, I think the thing that stood out to me was the many conversations that I was able to have while we're out there, that there's a financial aspect to it and there's a support as far as those organisations, but the incredible conversations that were happening around that track as people were walking and talking, and I did get a chance to go for a wander. I was not prepared for it in my jeans and boots, but that's all right, we got there. It was just, I guess, really powerful to see how many people were dealing with. There was stories of trauma, there was stories of loss, there was stories of all sorts of things that were at the top of people's minds, but also the opportunity to then discuss that and the power of that, being able to have those conversations without needing to be somewhere, do something, all those things. It just opened up this opportunity, and I've had a chance to touch base with a couple of people who did the event and just how powerful that entire experience was for them, even experiencing the walk itself. So yeah, really great event, and really do appreciate the amount of effort and time that the committee and Cyan and all the rest put into making that happen. It's really great.
Thank you. Councillors, any further items for councillor reports? Thank you. Councillor Patrick.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yeah, just one more thing that I probably should have highlighted in our last general meeting, but I didn't. But I just really wanted to honour Maxine and Fred Bruce, who were presented with their plaque for the down along Millennium Esplanade where the stage was built. We had a special celebration which was put on by BTABC, Boyne Tanham Arts, Business and Community, as well as the BAM, Beach Art Music, to celebrate and acknowledge their significant contributions to the work that they have done within those organisations. So I just really wanted to share that information with the community, that there will be now a plaque honouring Maxine and Fred Bruce for all of their tireless work for the Boyne Tanham community as well. Thanks.
Yeah. It was a very busy weekend, Easter weekend in the Gladstone region, and fantastic to see Maxine and, as you said, Fred as well, for all their work in the Boyne Tanham community. Maxine's time and Fred's time on the BTABC was very extensive. I'm sure sometimes Fred was dragged along, but he did a great job for many years, and at the end he was very happy to do it. That's for sure. No more councillor reports. No councillor reports. No further councillor reports. No urgent business. No notices of motion, and no confidential items. Declare the meeting closed at 10:20 a.m. Thank you.